Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, Eli Segall is here. He's the real estate reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Ring in the holidays with $350,000 big holiday extravaganza at Carson Valley Inn. Over 1,000 winners. Weekly cash, free play, and up to $10K in cash every Saturday. And 2 grand prize drawings. Win up to $20,000 in cash. 'Tis the season for winning big at the Carson Valley Inn.
Pro Group Management offers workers' comp services to a growing number of industries. As businesses grow and change with the times, the need for a solid workers' comp program must be flexible and up to date. The evolving nature of regulations can make staying ahead of complex tasks challenging. But Pro Group Management simplifies the work so your industry can move forward and succeed. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At LVRJ, we've always powered what's important to you, but we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
It's a good time to win during the big deal $150,000 guaranteed giveaways at Tamarack Casino. $15,000 in cash and free play giveaways each week. And $50,000 in grand prize giveaways with 2 top prizes of $15,000 cash. Your good times are at Tamarack Casino.
Nevada Newsmakers Studio is located at the headquarters of the Nevada Trucking Association. Motion and purpose are a truck's greatest virtue.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're always pleased to welcome back to the program Eli Segall. He is the real estate reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Pleasure to have you back, sir.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're always welcome. First thing let's talk about is Tillman Fertitta buying just a few acres on the Las Vegas Strip. Did he pay a record price or close to a record price for that land?
On a price per acre basis, it's very possible that he did. You know, he paid $270 million for just a little over 6 acres of real estate at the southeast corner of Las Vegas Boulevard and Harmon Avenue. And that amounts to just under $45 million an acre. So that per acre, it's definitely one of the highest, if not the highest sales ever on the Strip that I'm aware of.
Okay, so that beats Phil Ruffin's price that he got for the New Frontier, and it beats the 40-odd million that they paid per acre for the 2 acres next to Crystals.
Right.
Wow.
That's correct. I mean, yeah, and the Crystals deal, which was last year, was about $80 million for just 2 acres of real estate at City Center. And interestingly, Fertitta's property is basically directly across Las Vegas Boulevard from that property, from that 2-acre parcel. So this is a very congested, very busy area of the Strip. There are a ton of hotels right in the immediate vicinity, tons of tourists walking around, lots of foot traffic. So it's very valuable real estate.
So with MGM purchasing the Cosmopolitan, and what has tended, and I hope it doesn't, but what has tended to happen when corporations purchase hot, sexy properties, they turn into more like corporate properties. Do you think that Tillman Fertitta sees that opening to be the new hot thing on the Strip now that the Cosmopolitan is part of MGM?
I definitely, I don't know if his plans have anything to do with MGM acquiring the Cosmo. I'd be surprised if they do, frankly. But what's interesting is that, the Strip is dominated by major corporate chains, right? The companies like MGM, Caesars, these are companies that have multiple properties on the Strip, not just in Las Vegas, but in other cities too around the United States. And Tillman Fertitta, obviously he has his own corporate empire, but he doesn't have any hotels on the Strip. He does have one hotel in downtown Las Vegas, the Golden Nugget, but he doesn't have any resorts on Las Vegas Boulevard. So he would essentially be, pretty much by himself, like an independent operator, going up against these huge corporate casino chains. But that being said, he has a massive company in his own right. So it's not like he has no resources to go up against these bigger competitors.
Oh yeah, I mean he can bring in people from around the country, just from the Golden Nugget chain, but also Landry's. Whether he owns the Astros, I mean he owns a ton of things.
He does, yeah. He owns. I don't know about the Astros, but he definitely owns the Houston Rockets.
I'm sorry, the Rockets, right?
Yeah. He owns the Rockets basketball team. He owns dozens of restaurant brands that have locations all over the United States. I believe in some cases outside the United States as well. He's got a half a dozen or so Golden Nuggets locations around the country, mostly in the South, but also here in Las Vegas and downtown. So he knows the casino industry. He certainly knows the hospitality industry. So I think, if this project comes to fruition, like as he envisions, he'll be a formidable competitor for sure.
And he's also, we should point out, the cousin, right, of the Fertittas that own Station Casinos.
He is. I believe he's a third cousin. He is related to them in some way. I don't think they have any business dealings together at all, not that I'm aware of, but they are related, yes.
All right, so let's talk about the housing market and what's going on. During the 2008 recession, we saw companies like Blackstone come in and buy literally thousands of homes in the Las Vegas market because they had all dropped in price so dramatically, and then either leased them or resold them later. Are we seeing anything like that happening now with the interest rate rise and the drop in value of properties?
No, we're not seeing that, at least for now. What we are seeing is still a very broad slowdown in the housing market. Sales totals are way down from where they were last year. Now, last year was a record year for resales here in Southern Nevada, and the sales totals we're seeing now are significantly lower than what we saw in 2021. But you're right. After the housing market crashed about a decade or so ago, we did see major investors like Blackstone and many others come in, buy up thousands of homes. Very often they were buying in bulk, sight unseen, paying cash, and turning them into rentals. But at that time, interest rates had nothing to do with it because they were just paying cash for these homes. They weren't mortgaging them, but they were turning them into rentals, and they were able to buy so many in such high numbers because prices had collapsed. I think at one point, home prices here in Southern Nevada had dropped 2/3 from their peak during the mid-2000s bubble. And we're not seeing that right now. Prices have come down over the last several months here in the Las Vegas area, but they have not cratered by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't think we're at that point where we're going to see bargain hunting investors coming in to buy up homes in bulk like we did, back in 2009, 2010, because prices they just haven't dropped like they did a decade ago.
As you talk to realtors, and I've been talking to some up here in Northern Nevada, they've been saying that there's still a lot of cash buyers coming in from California and scooping up properties. Obviously not at the rate that they were before, but are you still seeing Southern California cash coming into Las Vegas?
We're seeing some. The sense I get, and it's hard to quantify it with exact numbers, but the sense I get from talking to real estate agents here in the Las Vegas area is that there are still California buyers coming in. There are still cash buyers, but not as much as there were, say, a year ago. Southern Nevada has long been a major point for Southern Californians to move to. That's been the case for decades, and it accelerated during the pandemic. But that wasn't a new phenomenon by any means. It just increased. And so we are still seeing Californians, specifically Southern Californians, moving here. I'm sure some of them are paying cash. Vegas always gets some percentage of cash buyers. But the sense I get is that it's not as big as it was a year ago.
How about the luxury market? Is that still holding its own?
The luxury market has slowed down. It has not, shut down by any means, but it has definitely slowed from what we saw a year ago, just like the rest of the housing market. And these are buyers who don't need a loan. Obviously, if they're buying a $10 million house, they have the money to do it. And in many cases, it's not even their primary residence. This is second, third, or fourth home for them. So they have, these are extremely wealthy people who can just write a check for this sort of thing. And it's no big deal. But the interest rates were so low, the money was so cheap that they were taking out mortgages last year because why not? Because they could get such a cheap loan. And with that going away, and then I think more importantly, with the stock market sliding this year, that's wiped out a lot of wealth for a lot of very wealthy people. So I think those factors and others have contributed to a slowing of the luxury market as well.
I'm hearing that some builders have been laying off people because they were just concerned about the ability of people to come in and buy their homes. What are you hearing? Because if you're starting a housing project right now, it's not going to be up and ready for a couple of years. What's the feeling of the builders in terms of how they want to invest at this point?
I've definitely heard talk about layoffs. I haven't seen any hard numbers on it, but I've definitely heard that, there's concerns about layoffs and that some builders locally were at one point at least preparing to make layoffs. I don't know if, how much or any of that actually came to fruition, but we have definitely seen, a slowdown in the home building business too, which, at some point has to result in job losses to some degree, I would think, if you don't have as much revenue coming in. Sales are down for home builders, I think across the board here in the Las Vegas Valley, especially compared to what they were doing last year. And another good indicator of the slowdown in business is that, the permits that they're pulling, home building permits, those have dropped sharply from a year ago. There were a couple of months recently, 1 or 2 months recently, where I don't think there were any or a few land closings. Builders did not buy any land, which is also rare here in Southern Nevada. You constantly see builders purchasing land, closing on tracts of land for new developments. So that at one point, like I said, a couple of months ago, I don't think there were any. So all those indicators point to a slowdown in business, which at some point you'd have to believe results in job losses.
It was interesting. Around 2008, it may have been 2009, I remember talking to the Southern Nevada Water Authority, and they were talking about how their revenue had dropped significantly because builders who had purchased water rights were selling them back to the Water Authority, and the Water Authority had way less revenue than it had had before. Are you hearing anything like that, or do you think?
I haven't. No, I did a little reporting on this. I remember 4 or 5 years ago, and just kind of going off memory. I think water rights become more valuable when home building increases. So it wouldn't surprise me that if home building is down, the value of water rights go down. That being said, there's obviously we're in the midst of a 2-decade-long drought here in Southern Nevada. You can go to Lake Mead and see the bathtub rings, and so I don't know. It's definitely a complex issue, but that frankly wouldn't surprise me.
It's such a fascinating thing because John Ensminger was on the show just a couple of weeks ago, the general manager of the Southern Nevada Water Authority, and he continues to reassure people that Southern Nevada has all the water it needs, in fact can absorb the cuts that it's having to deal with the agreements along the river. But when you look at Lake Mead, it does make you pause.
No, it's a scary thing to see. This is obviously the main source of water for Las Vegas Valley residents and businesses. I believe it supplies 90% of the water down here, Lake Mead does. And so, when you go out there and you see the falling water levels, they've basically been hovering, the water level of Lake Mead has basically been hovering at record lows for months now, if not longer. And so it's definitely a scary thing to see. But as I'm sure John and others have pointed out, water conservation and water recycling is very high here in Southern Nevada. So that helps. But if your main source of water keeps dropping, it's a scary thing to see.
To say the least. Let's take a break. We'll come back more on real estate from the Las Vegas Valley after this timeout.
It's a good time to win during the Big Deal $150,000 guaranteed giveaways at Tamarack Casino. $15,000 in cash and free play giveaways each week. And $50,000 in grand prize giveaways with 2 top prizes of $15,000 cash. Your good times are at Tamarack Casino.
With Nevada's only transplant center and verified burn center, the science is here. With award-winning cardiologist and the state's only dedicated heart failure clinic, the talent is here. With Nevada's most advanced robotic surgery, the technology is here. And with the Silver State's only designated pediatric trauma center, hope is here. All because we are here. UMC.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org. SouthwestSpecialties.org.
Southwest Specialties has been making the homes and businesses of Nevada beautiful for more than 20 years. Their experienced designers and craftsmen create the walkways, backyards, water features, and a variety of outdoor cooking areas that add curb appeal and value to your investment. Call today or visit them at their website and see how they can make your outdoor spaces special. Southwest Specialties, creative, distinctive, beautiful.
Ring in the holidays with $350,000 big holiday extravaganza at Carson Valley Inn. Over 1,000 winners. Weekly cash, free play, and up to $10K in cash every Saturday. And 2 grand prize drawings. Win up to $20,000 in cash. 'Tis the season for winning big at the Carson Valley Inn.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Eli Segall. He's the real estate reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Let's talk about interest rates for a moment, because you know, you're quite a bit younger than me, but I remember buying my house many moons ago, and my second on my house, not the first, but the second, was around 16%. So when I see interest rates up around 5%, I think to myself, boy, that's a pretty good deal. You know, even if the Fed starts to cut back on these increases, are the realtors talking to you about seeing interest rates going back down to where they were?
It seems very unlikely that interest rates would go back to where they were a year ago. You know, last year they were at record lows. They were below 3%, which is really just totally unheard of. If you look at the history of mortgage interest rates in the United States. And like you said, they have been significantly higher in the early mid 80s. I don't think it was uncommon for people to buy a house at 15, 16, maybe even 17 or 18% interest rates. But what's really caused, and you're right, where they are now, I think it's around 7%. It's still lower than what it has been in the past. But what's different, though, is that it has shot up over a very short period of time. And it's increased the price of a home over a very short period of time and caused a lot of sticker shock. You know, it wasn't that long ago, really, that you could get a 3% interest rate. And so now that it's more than doubled, and at the same time, home prices are still up, 10, 15% from where they were a year ago. So all that has just made it more expensive to buy a house, and it's priced a lot of people out. I haven't talked to anyone who expects rates to fall, even if the Fed, dials back its interest rate hikes. Rates might level out, but I haven't heard from anyone who's expecting rates to drop sharply anytime soon.
So there was a lands bill. There were multiple lands bills for Nevada, but one for the Las Vegas Valley that was rejected because it wasn't enough land. The problem there is that Las Vegas needs additional land to build housing and to keep the costs at a reasonable rate. If you can consider what the rate, the price of housing is now. Do you think that was, or I shouldn't say do you think, but do the people you're talking to think that may have been a mistake, that they should have taken what they could get and asked for more later?
I have to confess, it's not something that I cover. So, since that was a federal legislation, our reporter out of DC, who actually recently just passed away, Gary Martin, he had been covering all the lands bills and was far more familiar with that than I was. But what I can tell you is that I know builders and builders advocates have been saying for years that Southern Nevada has a shortage of land. I think if you go back to even news articles that the Review-Journal and others were doing in 2004, 2005, even people back then were talking about a land shortage. So I think it's something that developers and builders certainly want. They want to see more federal land released for sale that they can buy and develop and then sell off homes. So it's a critical part of their business for sure. But as far as other details of that bill, I'm unfortunately just not familiar with it.
All right, let's talk about the A's. We hear that Phil Ruffin has made several trips to Oakland. The Tropicana is still a site that's under discussion. What's the latest you're hearing?
Again, that's not something I'm covering. Our reporter, my colleague Mick Akers, has been all over that, and so the news I'm getting is what he's reporting. But what he's reported and what people are talking about is, yes, the Tropicana site. I believe the CEO of the company of General, I'm drawing a blank in the name.
GLPI, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. The company that owns the land underneath the Tropicana, he said on a recent earnings call that the Tropicana is still in play for the A's. There's also been talk that the A's are looking at Phil Ruffin's land at the southwest corner of Las Vegas Boulevard and Sahara. It's approximately, I think it's around 50 or 60 acres of land something like that. It's been used for outdoor concerts for the last several years, and really nothing more. So those are the two sites on the Strip that I think the A's have honed in on. I know at one point they were looking out in Summerlin, but that was quite a while ago, and I haven't heard anything about that recently. So seems like for Las Vegas, they are focused on these two sites on the Strip.
It says, a lot about how much money a team like that would bring, that Phil Ruffin would actually consider selling land, because he's a guy that buys land, he hangs on to it until he can really make the money, and then, sells it like he did with the New Frontier. So it was kind of surprising that he would continue to own Circus, but would sell off that piece of land. All right, let's take another break. We'll be back with more after this timeout.
Hi, I'm Renee Summerhour, digital news anchor here at 7 at 7. Watch our streaming nonstop newscast immediately with your mobile phone. 7 at 7 is the new way for you to get every bit of local news you need in just 7 minutes. Breaking news, local neighborhood news, weather, and sports are just a click away. Reporters bring you all of what's happening in the Valley. From Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, YouTube, and more. Get every bit of local news you need from the RJ and LVRJ.com.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
Truck drivers are some of the hardest working people you'll meet, delivering over 70% of America's freight and 92% of Nevada's. When there's a natural disaster, they're delivering critical supplies to help those communities recover and rebuild. Every sector of the economy and our nation's military rely on truck drivers. So let's take a moment to say thank you. On the open road or city streets, our truck drivers are rolling to make our economy and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
Each day, the Children's Advocacy Alliance partners with leaders, legislators, and families across Nevada to improve children's health, education, economic well-being, and safety. We recognize Nevada will be no better than the state of its children. Be a part of this change. Be a supporter of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. For more information, go to caanv.org.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Eli Segall. He's the real estate reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. So last time you were on, if I recall, I asked you about Ivanpah, the airport that they're planning to be the secondary airport. And in the last couple of weeks, a guy named John Wagner posted on LinkedIn that he is the newest airport administrator for the Southern Nevada Supplemental Airport Project. So it sounds like this thing is really moving into the reality stage. Any updates on where that is at this point?
I haven't heard anything, actually. This is the first time hearing about that. But I'm not aware of any recent concrete steps to make that airport a reality. I know we've talked about this before. That airport has been on the drawing board for 15, 20 years, something like that, if not longer. But I'm not aware of any concrete steps to actually certainly to start construction. I haven't heard anything about that.
We still continue to hear new projects going up at Apex. Is Apex finally really taking off the way it should have done years ago?
It's definitely seeing, what I can say about Apex is this: it's seeing its first, sizable surge of momentum probably ever, at least in recent history. Apex has been around since, I think it was created in the 80s after an industrial plant explosion down in Henderson. And, government leaders wanted to move potentially dangerous industrial uses basically to the middle of the desert where they couldn't hurt anybody or hurt any homes or anything like that if there was an accident or explosion like there was in Henderson with the Pepcon plant. And basically Apex kind of plodded along for years with little to no construction. You see a project here and there. There's a garbage dump out there. There's a couple of electrical substations for NV Energy. You saw some other projects come and go. Obviously Faraday Future came and went about 5 or 6 years ago. They never built their car factory in Apex. But what we have seen over the last year or two is a handful of very sizable land deals out in Apex by companies looking to build mostly, huge distribution projects. There's actually like a liquefied natural gas plant out there as well by a French energy giant. But for the most part, companies that are buying land, they're looking to build big box distribution centers. And I should point out, it's all at the very southern edge of Apex, where a water line was installed about 3 or 4 years ago. The city of North Las Vegas partnered with a big landowner down there to install a water line. And I remember when the city announced its groundbreaking for the water line, it was something to the effect of decades-old problem solved, water coming to Apex. Because the knock on Apex had always been, there's just no infrastructure. It's just raw desert out there, and you can't plug into anything. And so now you can. And also land prices near the Las Vegas Motor Speedway have gone up significantly. That was a very popular spot for warehouse construction over the last few years. There's very few available sites to build near the Speedway. And so I think it's pushed people out. And the next step, as people tell me who work in industrial real estate, the next logical step is to go to Apex, which is maybe 5 or 6 miles from the Speedway. And now there's infrastructure. You can still get basically as much land as you want, and the prices are significantly cheaper than in other areas of the valley. So there's a lot of momentum in Apex right now for sure.
Well, that's where we have to leave it. It is always fun to talk to you, my friend. I really appreciate it. And we will continue to check in with you and see what's happening. But it seems like, especially at Apex, that they kind of figured out what TRI was doing up in the north and with the distribution centers. And that really helped the diversification up here. And hopefully it will do the same for Las Vegas. Thanks for doing this as always.
You bet. Thanks, Sam.
All right. And we'll be right back.
Imagine a magical garden that feeds Carson City's hungry and homeless, teaches our high school students agriculture, creates hanging floral displays to beautify downtown, and yet charges nothing. It's not magic. It's the Greenhouse Project. It's real, it's growing, and it needs your help. Go online to carsоncitygreenhouse.org so together we can grow it forward.
Take a look at Pro Group Management and see how your workers' comp requirements can be met head-on. By taking a proactive approach, Pro Group can assure that your company is meeting or exceeding state and federal standards. As you move forward in your industry, Pro Group moves with you, simplifying regulatory tasks, clearing the way so you can get the job done and look to your future success. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
Brian Culpa Photography was born in the rolling hills of Massachusetts, and now he can help you experience the stunning beauty of Nevada in a whole new way through the power of flight. Flying has always been a passion for Brian, and at Brian Culpa Photography, he can make your imagination soar. Brian has the creative mind and tools to tell your unique story. Experience the bird's eye view at brianculpaphotography.com. As always, you can watch Nevada Newsmakers 24 hours a day at NevadaNewsmakers.com. We'll see you on the next show.